In 2018, we celebrate 60 years of International Women's Day in Trinidad and Tobago. We began back in 1958 with rallies and small demonstrations in South Trinidad, organized by Christina Lewis, a socialist and activist. Now, we have come a long way, but what have we achieved since? Joining us, we have Hazel Brown, network of NGOs, who will be telling us about an upcoming event geared towards celebrating International Women's Day. Welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm doing all right. And I think for us, International Women's Day is an exciting period because that's our day. People ask, but we now have a Men's Day, you know that, in November. Yes. So this day is for women, especially for the ordinary women who don't get celebrated in the rest of the year. It provides all kinds of opportunities for us to honor those women on whose shoulders we now sit and climb. Because people will tell you women have progressed a lot in Trinidad and Tobago. We now have a woman president, a woman speaker of the House, a woman president of the Senate. So we are gradually filling a lot of the spaces at the top. But the gap between the top and the bottom is getting larger. And that is because we have a concentration of women down at the bottom who are disadvantaged, women and girls, very important. And we haven't figured out the strategies for carrying everybody up. So that not only are women occupying the spaces at the top, the spaces in the middle need to be filled by competent people, and certainly to raise the levels for the women who are at the bottom.
And I understand that this event is geared towards putting forward strategies and ideas in order to do so?
Of course, 60 years is a lot of years, and there's a lot of different kinds of ways in which we celebrate it. So, for example, in 2011, when the world celebrated 100 years since International Women's Day had been celebrated all over the world in 2011. In Trinidad and Tobago, it fell on Carnival Tuesday. So how do you celebrate on Carnival Tuesday? Well, we brought out a section in a band, a baby doll section in a band, and carried our banner across the Savannah stage. Because you have to use, we feel very strongly as well that there's a need for us to use our cultural art forms like the Calypso and Carnival to get the messages from the baby dolls as important advocacy tools for women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, much has happened since 1958. Can you help us to understand more of where we are today and if we really are making strides in the right direction and if there have been major setbacks?
All right. Like I said, we started up as a women's revolutionary kind of movement coming out of working class and workers to the point where the UN itself got involved in 1975. The UN officially recognized International Women's Day in 1975, more than 70 years since we women all over the world had been doing it. But that brought about a change because it involved a different kind of relationship, for example, with the government. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have some very interesting experience through different governments and different regimes and different PSs, different approaches. Some of the approaches from the state being more collaborative and some other being more hands-off. So we've had to negotiate that space that we share with the state because we think the state has a responsibility. Also, we've been able, interestingly, over the years to involve the private sector. So, for example, American Chamber themselves had last year and the year before their own celebration of women in business. So you've got a different kind of involvement of people. A very interesting participation that we've had, for example, has been with local government councils. So the councils in San Fernando and Arima and Princestown and Point Fortin have played their role in developing International Women's Day at that level. There's also been a lot of interaction with the religious organizations. So we always start our International Women's Day celebrations with a church service, whatever. But we've been to all of the denominations. We've been to Seventh-day Adventist, Anglican, Catholic, Muslim, Hindu. So the Spiritual Baptist we went to last year in Point Fortin. So we see International Women's Day as a space for everybody. That space doesn't belong to anybody. It doesn't belong to the feminists. It doesn't belong to, the people who have money. It doesn't belong to people who are organized. It belongs to every single woman. And one of the things maybe I should ask for now is, as you think about International Women's Day, which is next Thursday, think about what good, kind, lovely, loving thing you can do for a woman on next Thursday. Start thinking about it now and we could have some beautiful outcomes from that, especially if that's what children see and learn, that there's a day when we honor the contribution and the work that women do.
What are some of the challenges facing our women today? I know you mentioned we've made several strides and steps in the right direction, but then there's the issue of domestic violence, gender roles. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, I think for all of us is a learning experience because the world is different. So, for example, just the whole business of media and social media and the extent to which we are able to communicate with each other to design our messages in ways that are effective. Because I think one of the challenges we face is the business about how we communicate our feelings, our ambitions, our needs, our skills and talents. How do we communicate and share all of those things so that people can benefit? Because, you know, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, women do a lot of the charitable work, a lot of the work of, you know, helping out wherever other people are in need. One of the things that tends to do sometimes is to put in the background the business of the development. What do you do to prevent the situation that you're trying to fix from reoccurring or continuing? That is much harder kind of work, and it requires many more hands. And I think we've learned a lot over the years about how to do the advocacy and lobbying that is required. And I have to say, we can't celebrate International Women's Day in 2018 without getting some word from the government on where is the national gender policy. We've been doing that one since 1988. You know, that's a long time for us to be going. We started working on national gender policy when Margaret Hector was the minister in an NER government. That's a long time ago. I don't know if people remember who Margaret was. But we still haven't gotten it. So today, again, we demand that the government accept and put in place a national gender policy in Trinidad and Tobago, because without that, we can't fix the problem, whether the problem is a problem of crime or violence or sexual harassment or people not paying minimum wages, or the whole question of recognition of workers as women, domestic workers as workers. There are a whole lot of discriminatory actions that continue in Trinidad and Tobago that needs our attention. So, for example, in 2016, we went to Geneva to the CEDAW Convention to present a Trinidad and Tobago report. And out of that report, there are 30 laws in Trinidad and Tobago that need to be amended if women are to have full independence, equality in Trinidad and Tobago. There are things that have to be done at different levels, at the policy level, certainly at the administrative state level, at the community level, which is very critical for solving any problem. Because every time a woman gets killed, for example, everybody comes out to say, everybody knew, everybody spoke about it. The problem was nobody knew what to do about it. So empowering people and providing them with the skills and the information that they need to deal with problems at a household and a community level is very important. And I think a focus back to how improving households and household management as well is a critical strategy that we need to engage in now.
Even with our young men.
Yes, right, because that's where they learn all of the horrible things that we say they do. They've learned it somewhere. And we all have to take responsibility, because a lot of these young men who are angry and acting up outside of there, if you sit and talk with them, you will begin to realize the amount of hurt and abuse that they've suffered and they're carrying around with them.
What would you say is the objective or main objectives of this particular event?
Well, like I said, celebrating women, especially the ordinary women. International Women's Day is not a Hyatt event. International Women's Day. And that's why this year we're going back to the street. We used to
ground level to meet the people.
To meet the people. That's where the people are. I remember when we first started walking through Port of Spain at lunchtime, there may be about 50 of us, and Johnny Williams used to laugh at us and say, "Where the fear you going down?" And men used to shout at us from the pavement, "Why you don't go and cook all your husband's food," right? We've seen that change to the point where we had 5,000 women on the street here with a big truck and men coming to join us. So the evolution and the reflections that we will do today will look at all of how we've gone, how things have changed, how we have changed, how the celebrations have changed, how different organizations and entities have become involved. But what is the way forward? What kind of outcomes do we want to get out of International Women? Is it just to sit down and have some tea and be nice and say nice things to each other? Or do we really want to consolidate in solidarity our messages and our goals and our missions that we can all achieve in our lifetimes? And again, for the network, we've also tried in the last decade or so to focus on girls. Because if we don't deal with the problems of girls, everybody asks about what is the boys, what about the boys? But if you don't focus on the issues of the girls, we will still be talking about the same problems 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Girls have special needs, girls need attention, and they are critical in the business of development of the country.
Who are some of the moderators at the event?
All right, we have asked Julie Williams to come. I think she's been very important in the evolution of International Women's Day. We asked Merle Hodge, Grace Talma. It was in Grace Talma's that we office in St. James that we started our first organizations of International Women's Day. We have a collection of people, we think, who've experienced this International Women's Day over the years in different ways. What were the most valuable experiences that they have? And what are the things they say, that's not what we wanted to do. I remember one thing we started getting the army involved in our celebrations. And one year they came to the promenade and they brought the guns. And we said, well, is that what we want? You know?
So collaboration is important.
Collaboration is
various
important.
Organizations
yes.
coming together. What are
and
your closing comments?
Sharing is important as well.
Well, as we get ready to wrap this interview, what are your closing comments? What would you like to see? What is your message?
We would like to hear, we would have to start a conversation about what does International Women's Day really mean and what is each of us, our own contribution. But I want it to continue to be a celebration of ordinary women. I remember, I talked about the Princestown event. When Mr. Pandey was the Prime Minister, there was an event in Princestown. Mrs. Pandey came with her entourage to honor the women who were the midwives in Princestown who had delivered the babies at home, and the women in the markets in Princestown. For me, that was one of the most moving experiences I had of International Women's Day, because that is what it is about.
And this event takes place today?
Today we do reflections at 10 to 1 o'clock at the towers, the waterfront towers, the Ministry of Gender OPM office. Like I said, we've invited a kind of cross-section of people, but we want to hear everybody's views about what does this thing really mean for you, and is what is happening now making sense to you.
So it's about charting the way forward, putting strategies in place.
Right,
to
and
make
then
a
next week, of course, we have a full calendar of events and activities catered for different audiences and different constituencies and in different areas. And we're still encouraging the regional corporations and the business organizations and the ministries to have their own celebrations for their own staff and their constituencies.
Okay, Ms. Brown, thank you so much for being part of our show. It was such a pleasure.
And we will
to
leave
have
you some information that you can use as
Sure.
the events unfold over the
Certainly.
month. But definitely, Thursday at lunchtime, we're marching through Port of Spain.
Great, we look forward to that. Thank you so much for being here.